It's been a while since we've done a comedy, so we might as well kick it off with one of the best. Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1978 to take a look at a motion picture that sure as shit could never get made today, but none of that matters. We're here to have a good time. We are talking about National Lampoon's Animal House. But before we dig into this anymore, before we look at this gem any further, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
This is Faber College in 1962. You know, 1962 had to be the best year of my life. I was a member of Delta Tau Chi. The Deltas. What a great bunch of guys. Bluto. Hoover.
Raise your right hand.
Pinto. Flounder.
Flounder?
D-Day. Boon.
It's not gonna be an orgy. It's a toga party.
And look at me in '62. The Otter. School was fun in those days. The girls. The party. The friendships. The girls. Of course, we had our problems.
Find me a way to revoke Delta's charter.
You're out. Finished at Faber, expelled. I want you off this campus at 9 o'clock Monday morning. Let's go!
National Lampoon's Animal House, starring John Belushi, Tim Matheson,
Would you go out with me?
and Donald Sutherland as Jennings.
Now, was Milton saying being bad is more fun than being good?
National Lampoon's Animal House.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by John Landis. What? Yes, you've seen his stuff before. We are talking about the Blues Brothers. We are talking about An American Werewolf in London, and Kentucky Fried Movie, and Trading Places, and Spies Like Us, and The Three Amigos, and Coming to America, and Innocent Blood, and Beverly Hills Cop 3, and the Thriller music video, and of course, the infamous situation with the Twilight Zone movie. Anyway, long career, big track record, has a name in a bunch of flicks you all seen before. Let's keep moving. Okay, everybody, you know how I normally work this part. I look at like 4 or 5 of the main cast members, and then maybe I'll throw in a couple names that I just kind of rifle through really quick at the end, and that's about it. But honestly, there are too many people in this motion picture to do that with. And some of the people with the biggest listings might not be the people that you see the most on screen, and there's just so many of them. So I am going to literally tear through all kinds of names and just give you a taste of what every one of them has been in, and we can just get on to the story from there. We're talking about John Belushi. Of course, he was in 1941, The Blues Brothers, and Neighbors. We're talking about Tim Matheson. He was in Black Sheep and Drop Dead Fred and Fletch and Magnum Force and 1941. Peter Riegert, and he was in The Mask and One Tree Hill and The Sopranos, and Tom Hulce. Come on. Amadeus, Slam Dance, Echo Park, Stephen Furst, Babylon 5, St. Elsewhere, Silent Rage, Bruce McGill, come on, D-Day, are you shitting me? MacGyver, My Cousin Vinny, Silkwood, so many others. James Widdoes, come on, Charles in Charge, Night Court, big time TV director, has done a lot behind the camera, even more than in front of it. And of course, Karen Allen, Starman, Indiana Jones, The Wanderers, James Doughton, come on, Blind Date, The Beach Girls, Malibu Beach. He was in all those movies back then where there's some guy had to be good looking with a bunch of chicks on the beach, just the way it went. Mark Metcalf, One Crazy Summer, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and of course, is that a Twisted Sister logo? You know what I'm talking about. Kevin Bacon, Hollow Man, Mystic River, Footloose, Friday the 13th, Mary Louise Weller, come on, BJ and the Bear, Chips, Vegas, that movie, The Evil, which someday I gotta review. And Martha Smith, come on, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, she was on Days of Our Lives. The legendary John Vernon, Dirty Harry, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Verna Bloom, High Plains Drifter, Honky Tonk Man, After Hours, come on, Donald Sutherland, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Clute, Kelly's Heroes, Caesar de Nova, Mean Street, Cleopatra, Tentacles, and the one and the only Dwayne Jesse, DC Cab, Thank God It's Friday, Which Way Is Up, and actually he's probably more now known as Otis Day than he ever was by his real name. It is what it is. There was a huge amount of people in this motion picture that had really cool careers, especially through the 80s. Just the way it is. Let's get going to the story. All right, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. So I keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, and we can get this puppy on the road right to summation land. Anyway, this motion picture starts out in 1962, and there's these two guys, and all they want to do is get into a fraternity. We're talking about Larry, we're talking about Kent, Pinto, and Flounder, as they will come to be known later. Long story, but we'll get there. Anyway, they go to the Omega House, where they are clearly not wanted and keep getting stuck into nerd corner over and over again. Anyway, they leave, and Kent says to Larry, hey, we can try Delta House. My brother was a member there. I'm a legacy. They are sure to let us in. So as they walk onto the front lawn, and the very drunk John Belushi turns around and pisses on their shoes, he then invites them in to meet the rest of the gang. They walk into this shadowy shambles of a house to meet the entire crew. Everybody from Hoover and Otter and Boon and D-Day, you name them, they're there. And they are having the party of a lifetime. And after a little while, yes, they do elect to take in one, well, now Flounder, and one, well, Pinto. Why Pinto? Why not? Anyway, next day you see Dean Wormer talking to some of the guys. Well, he's talking to the one guy from Omega, and he says, I want to know all I can. We got to shut down Delta this year. This is the last time these guys are going to exist. We hate them. You and that sniveling little snot Niedermeyer, used to, are going to learn everything there is about Delta House. You're going to help me put these guys out of business. We are going to finally, once and for all, close shop on Delta House. Next day you have this incredibly famous scene that takes place where Flounder is out there with his ROTC group, and he is sitting there doing the jumping jacks out in the field. And as he is working out, or whatever you want to call it, one Douglas Niedermeyer shows up and says, "Is that a pledge on your feudal form?" Turns into a big thing. Well, you know, Boon, Otter, they're playing a little bit of happy golf, and they swack his horse in the ass, and he gets dragged away. Enough said about that. Cut ahead, you got one D-Day and one Bluto, and they're out there, and they steal the answers to the psychology exam, and they take them, and all the boys learn them, and they take the test. Well, didn't really go too well because the exam was tainted, because the wrong answers were put on there by the Omega guys just to see the Delta House guys fail. It's the way it goes. Around the same time, you got Flounder. He's working the stables with Niedermeyer's big, mean, cruel horse that always really picks on him. Niedermeyer shows up, makes Flounder do push-ups into a pile of shit, upon which D-Day and Bluto walk in, and they say, hey, we're going to teach this horse a lesson. We're going to teach them a lesson. They take that horse to old Dean Wormer's office himself, and then they give Flounder the job of going in there and shooting that horse. Actually, I'm not going to tell you what happens at that point. That would just wreck it for you. I mean, it's a great scene. It is what it is. Anyway, their grade point average turns out to be so damn low. Dean Wormer shows up himself and says, you guys are going to get shut down. You're a bunch of clowns. You're a bunch of losers. It is what it is. You guys are this close. to being out of this place? Well, one thing leads to another, and the boys say the only thing to do right now is a toga party. And they have a toga party. To get ready for the toga party, they go to the old Food King shopping mall. And they get themselves some steaks and some booze. And by the way, Tim Matheson bumps into Dean Wormer's wife at that moment and shows her his cucumber. Well, it is what it is. You get the idea. She shows up at the party later and has a little bit of fun with the kids and the boys, and the party gets a little bit crazy. She goes home, and old Dean Wormer has his wife back in a various state of undress and completely blitzed off her ass. That's the end for old Dean Wormer. He has had enough. He winds up organizing this kind of half-assed, goofy courtroom on which I didn't even know that they did this kind of shit. And they find that the Delta House has broke the rules, that they're going to shut them down. They're going to be whatever the hell they call that shit on campus when they get rid of whatever. You know what I'm talking about. So the boys leave. They sing patriotic songs as they're walking out. And Boon, Otter, Flounder, Pinto, road trip. They're going out and having a little bit of fun in the clubs. Is what it is. You know what I'm talking about. But by the time they get back, they find out that old Wormer has shut them down. Has closed Delta House. Oh, shit. It's over. Wormer dropped the big one, man. But no. The guys at Delta House, they're saying, we're not going to go out like this. No. Did we give up when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? No. We're going to have our retribution. And we're going to sabotage the homecoming parade. That's basically about it. I kind of flew through it really fast. You get the idea. It is what it is. It's Animal House. Good time, have I? All right, everybody. Does Animal House work? Yes, Animal House works. Animal House is one of the great comedies of all time, especially one of the great comedies of the late 70s that inspired basically 80,000 copycat type movies during the 80s. I don't care if it was Porky's. I don't care if it was something as shitty as King Frat or Revenge of the Nerds. This was the juggernaut that kind of broke everything loose of all these young guys running around, having all this fraternity hijinks, whatever. And it just set the standard for what was to follow. Yeah, you had a little bit of that in those high school comedy romps in the early 70s that were basically semi-skin flicks. But really, on the big screen, that launched the Hollywood version of all that kind of stuff, it was this motion picture. And you should really check it out just for that. But there's a lot of other reasons. But before we get to those, let's get the big three out of the way. The directing, the movie looks great. It's shot fine. It's John Landis. That's all you need to know. We don't have to rip it apart and sit here and get all philosophical. It looks good. Let's move on. The writing, it's fucking funny. It's funny. Yes, I know none of this humor would be allowed today. But whatever, it's friggin' funny. You're going to laugh. The delivery and the way people react to it and the situations is goddamn hilarious. So, the writing, no problem. The acting, yes. You remember the list of names I gave you. Whether they were comedic actors or serious actors or whatever the fuck they were, they deliver in this motion picture. And all equally well, actually. There's so many people in the cast, and they all get, I'd say damn near the same amount of screen time. A few more than a few others, yes. But they all get a lot of screen time. They all get to have their part. They all get to have their bit of light on them. Every character gets some attention. So, every actor gets to deliver in that right. So the acting, it's fine. Now let's get back on track to why this motion picture works. Plainly and simply, it's funny. It's funny. It's 2 hours of naughty boy humor. You know what I mean? I know that shit couldn't get made today. I know everything in here would be labeled as sexist and this and the other and that today. But it delivers and it is funny. And you got to remember it was 1978. Doesn't mean it ain't still funny today. That some people might not find it funny, yeah, but it's still funny today. Plain and simple, any way you want to cut it. And since we're touching on that subject, let's be honest. This motion picture probably even knew for its time it was going to catch some shit. I mean, come on. You know what I mean? There was a lot of crazy humor in this thing, and they knew they were going to catch some shit. So, almost right off the bat, they start letting you know, don't take this motion picture seriously. It's straight comedy. It's farce. It's not real. It's not meant to be real. You're never supposed to think that it's real. I mean, off the bat, they have Belushi just look right into the camera. They broke the wall. He stares you in the face. He gives you the Belushi grin, the Belushi eyebrows, and you're like, okay, I get it. We are not supposed to view this in any way, shape, or form like reality. This is not but maybe 2 steps away from Airplane or something, okay? We're just supposed to roll with the shit we are seeing. Another thing that helps this motion picture work is the camaraderie of the group. A camaraderie of a group of misfits. Everybody likes a movie with a group of misfits in it, and this motion picture has a group of misfits. It's the nerds against the wealthy kids. It's the preps against the street guys. Although there's a couple of somewhat nerdy preppy guys in Delta House. Yes, there's a couple of elitist dudes in Delta House. There's a bunch of partiers in Delta House. There's mysterious guys in there, and everybody looks like they're about 33 years old. But in that group, you sit there and you see this bond that forms between them. They're the group you're rooting for against the cartoon characters that are the rich kids. And basically, even the Delta House guys are kind of cartoon characters. Again, this is basically like a cartoon movie. It's not meant to be taken seriously. But anyway, you care about the group. You care about what's going on. Even though, oddly enough, a lot of the people in this motion picture are not likable. Boon and Otter really only care about themselves and just, they're the most schmucky guys you'd ever want to meet. They take advantage of people like Flounder. They do all kinds of shit like that, but he's their guy to take advantage of, and they will look out for him compared to anybody else. It's that kind of thing. So you had the camaraderie, you had the friendship, you had that goofy version of, it's us against them. It's the low class versus the high class. It's the street versus Wall Street. It's that kind of stuff. And that always works and plays well in motion pictures. Throw into the fact you get a killer soundtrack. You get just enough comedy to keep this thing rolling and moving, even though it's farcical. You get just enough story to care about most of the characters. You get just enough of everything to make it feel like a real motion picture and not quite like just one crazy scene after the other like an Airplane would be, which I love Airplane, by the way. But it's just one neck back from that, so you're getting a lot going on, and it just works in a perfect little balance. Now, as much as I'm praising this flick, is there any problems with this flick? Actually, I can't really name that many of them. Okay, everybody is a cartoon character, let's face it, but it works for this kind of motion picture. The goody-goodies and the Richie-Richies are so goody-goody and so tight-assed it's almost disturbing, but it's meant to be that way. Come on. And the bad boys are so bad and so over the top and so insane. It's meant to be that way. But you get it. So you can't really fault it for like that. You can't really fault it in any kind of way of that nature simply because they meant this shit on purpose to basically bolster up what is a giant adult cartoon, lampoon, magazine type of motion picture. You know what I mean? And, by the way, please keep in mind if and when you watch this motion picture, this thing was in 1978. Like I said earlier, this movie was copied over and over and over again, a million times. So when you're watching it and you start to say to yourself, oh my God, I've seen American Pie, or oh my God, I've seen, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. And you see some of that humor. Remember, this was the granddaddy that blew it into the main market. Yes, there was motion pictures before it. The Beach Girls and all that kind of shit that came before it that were in the same ballpark, kind of. But none of them had that mainstream big movie success that Animal House did. John Belushi was huge at the moment. He was like a monster star, just ready to break out from SNL and all that kind of shit. So he had that momentum. You got people like Sutherland and Vernon in this thing. You got all kinds of people that went on to have great careers that none of those other motion pictures did. And they sure as hell didn't have a director like John Landis. So those movies were what they were. This one set the benchmark and influenced everything that came after. All I'm going to say to you is if you like National Lampoon's Vacation, if you liked Ghostbusters, if you liked all those kind of motion pictures with that irreverent, silly kind of humor, that naughty boy, goofy, reality but definitely not reality kind of motion pictures, then you will love Animal House. Just get out there, give it a shot, look it up. It's the granddaddy of all bad boy college movies. Porky's came later. They were high schoolers, but whatever, same thing, same 28-year-old guys playing the parts. All that kind of shit. It was after Animal House. It's a good time. It's a funny time. Sure as shit will never get remade again. Not like this. And it's a look back at a time when motion pictures could just say, we're going to cut loose, have a good time, and just say, fuck it. Anyway, everybody, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be there for a friend. But most of all, no matter what, never, and I mean ever, take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.